Thank you so much for joining me again for another video. As always, I'm very grateful for all your views, likes and subscriptions to the previous video. I thought today we'd spend the time looking at the mosque, which is a place of worship in the Islamic tradition. And what we've got for you here is yes, it is terrible, I know, but I give it to you as a gift because quite frankly you wouldn't pay for it. Is a diagram of a mosque. Okay, so this is an aerial view and it really is quite shocking, isn't it, how terrible it is. As you can see, art was never going to be something I was going to study, but we're going to just look at some of the key features of a mosque and just see what they're about and just take it from there really. So as I said, mosque is a place of worship in the Islamic faith. And one of the first key features for a mosque is a minaret, and it's from where the call to prayer is given, okay, by someone called the muezzin, and the adhan is the call to prayer. So what will happen is that, as you know, in the Islamic faith, prayer tradition is 5 times a day, and the muezzin will go to the top of the minaret and give the call to prayer. And one of the things that really struck me about this, so something you might want to think about, is what would be the impact on the area. There's a lovely photo here of Medina, one of the holy cities in Islam. And you can see there's obviously, first of all, the visual impact of the minaret. Okay, so you've got these, it's really a stunning photo, isn't it? It's like something out of Star Wars or something. And you get the visual effect of the minaret, but also it's practical. So you have to say, here's the mosque, here's where worship happens, and just very simply, it's a tall tower, you can hear what's being said, so the local community know it's time to pray. So by the way, I should add as well, obviously I'm talking about purpose-built mosques, so mosques don't necessarily have to be purpose-built. When communities started to move into areas where there wasn't, for example, already a mosque, they might take a building and convert it. So I remember hearing the story of a bowling alley that was once converted into a mosque. So I think that's important to add as well. Another area that's important is the washing area, wudu, which is performed before you pray. So remember, hot, dry countries is where Islam originated from, so there's the practical side of just being physically clean, keeping you cool as well, but also the symbolic side of washing, cleansing yourself ready. And what I like about this image here is that it shows how it's a ritual which is open to all. So you see it's not partitioned off, you've got the little seats there, so there's that sense of everybody being together as well, a sense of community. And I think that's quite important as well, just to make sure that is highlighted. Let's have a look. This is one of my favorite photos when I was putting this together. There's the dome, okay, and this is from a mosque in Rochdale, which is in the north of England. And the dome had a number of purposes. First of all, it's acoustics, so it allows the sound to be amplified when people are worshipping in the mosque, but also it can be decorative, so it can be like this one here, so actually quite powerful as well to be in that mosque and praying and looking up and seeing the sky. A more traditional style would obviously had sort of, wouldn't be glass, but you could perhaps have some pictures of the stars. In Islam we don't have any images at all of Allah or the prophets, so because that makes sure that you don't step into idol worship. But I do really like that particular photograph there. So the dome is not just decorative, it has something in terms of a purpose as well. And then inside the mosque, okay, you will notice, and this is something else just to think about, there are no seats, and you might want to reflect on why like this, what's happening, what's going on. I think what's that shows, first of all, is a sense of equality. Okay, no one sits on a big seat or a big throne, or you don't have the person who's leading the worship, the imam, given any particular special treatment as such. Okay, everyone is equal before Allah. And you can just see as well that if you look very carefully, putting the mouse cursor, that there are little spaces where every worshipper can have their own little space as well. So I think you might want to play around with that idea as well. Why there aren't any seats there in the mosque? At this point, someone normally says, "Well, what if you're perhaps find it difficult to kneel down or so forth?" Well, obviously there'll be some spaces at the back. I was in a mosque last year, and one of the things is that for those who perhaps weren't able to find it difficult for mobility, then they had access to sort of being at the back and being comfortable. So that's always accounted for. And then we have the mirab, which is a little niche in the mosque. Okay, I love this particular image here. Forgive me, I wasn't able to work out where from which particular mosque, and that points towards Mecca. So when Muslims pray, they make sure they're all facing towards the holy city, which, if you remember, is a place of pilgrimage too. And everyone will be facing east. And facing east is quite an interesting idea. Many churches are built facing east. East is where the sun rises. So it's an interesting comparison in terms of other faiths too. But make sure that everyone is facing towards the holy city. And then you also have the minbar. And I suppose this is the one time where you might think the perception is, oh, you know, looks like that this idea of equality has gone out the window, and is everyone really the same? Well, the imam will give the you know, the words there for the service. You might just some preaching from the Quran or maybe the Hadith. But what you've got to remember is that this isn't built to make that person seem more important. It's just basically so they can be seen and they can be heard. So that raised platform, the minbar, okay, is the result of that. And I think that the other thing to think about as well when we're talking about the mosque is it's not just there for worship in sense of what we might think about traditional, looking at the Quran and discussing Allah and so forth. It's also part of a community, and it might be, for example, not just things like running clubs for youngsters or a meeting place for the elderly. It might also be a place to give legal advice, might be a way of outreach for the homeless or the vulnerable. A whole host of things that go on, particularly to underscore this idea of Ummah, okay, that worldwide community of Muslims. Anyway, feel free amongst yourselves to have a think about that. As always, if you're able to like and subscribe, but most importantly, enjoy your learning. Thank you.